From Kansas State University, this is Agriculture Today. Eric Atkinson with you. Thanks for joining us. The spotlight today is on two more of the Kansas farm and ranch couples who've been named to the 2019 class of Kansas Master Farmers, Master Farm Homemakers. Again, a recognition program co-sponsored by K-State Research and Extension, honoring outstanding couples for their accomplishments in production agriculture, family living, and community service. Today, you'll hear about couples from opposite corners of the state, Doug and Saundra McGraw of Finney County, and David and Janet Olson of Brown County. And further ahead with his weekly commentary on life in rural Kansas, K-State's Gus Vanderhoeven. All that and more coming up on this Agriculture Today. For 25 years, K-State Research and Extension's Kansas Agricultural Mediation Services has been providing a no-cost, confidential place to call in and visit with an agricultural lawyer. Our experts are available to help you producers handle legal and financial issues. Explore your options and generate solutions. Call us at 800-321-3276 or visit us online. Kansas Agricultural Mediation Services. Welcome to our midweek edition of Agriculture Today. Good to have you aboard once more. Well, if you've been listening in this week, you'll know that we are sharing with you the stories of 6 Kansas farm and ranch couples who will be formally recognized at ceremonies this Friday as members of the 2019 class of Kansas Master Farmers, Master Farm Homemakers. Again, this recognition program has a rich history of honoring farm couples for their accomplishments in production agriculture, in family living, and in community service. It is co-sponsored by K-State Research and Extension and Kansas Farmer Magazine. And today for you, we have not one but 2 couples to tell you about during our first half hour, the first of which hail from southwest Kansas. Both having been raised on the farm, Doug and Saundra McGraw knew from the start what it takes to succeed in production agriculture in that region. Doug was driving a tractor for his father at age 8 on the family farm near Pierceville, southeast of Garden City. He eventually earned his agricultural economics degree from Kansas State University. Saundra was raised on a farm not far away near Ingalls in nearby Gray County. After completing her nursing degree at the University of Kansas Medical Center, she and Doug married and their farming story began. Crop and cattle production were the foundation of their operation, steadily expanding it to 2,900 acres at the time of their retirement in 2010. Now their daughter and son-in-law are running the farm. Conservation practices were prioritized over the years, as was involvement in 4-H programs and other extension activities in Finney County. They've also been deeply committed to community service, most recently leading the effort to restore the community of Pierceville. Doug reflects on his return to the farm those many years ago.
I got started farming at a very young age, helping my dad, and I guess it imprinted me to be a farmer. That was my plan, and that's what I wanted to do, and was able to do it.
Now, you and Saundra had grown up with each other in this very Pierceville area, correct?
Right.
We went to grade school. We were in first grade together. We weren't always dating.
Not until after you left the Pierceville area, correct?
Until after we both graduated from high school is really when we started dating.
Okay.
I was in Ingalls, which is in Gray County. So
she was my girlfriend in 2nd grade, however.
So you took a break, and then finished the relationship later on.
Right.
And Saundra, you went on to KU Med Center for nursing education, correct?
I did. After 2 years, that would have been my junior and senior year, yes.
And then you came back upon both of you graduating right back to the farm.
That's correct. Mm-hmm. I graduated spring of 65 and came back, and my dad and I formed a partnership. He retired in 76, and so then I bought his share of the partnership out and went from there.
And was it a diversified operation at the time? Cattle, crops?
It was. Yeah, we had corn, alfalfa. We had cattle. Usually bought stockers in the fall, grazed them over the winter on wheat pasture, and sold them as feeder cattle in the summer. And then we had a small cow herd at that time. So, yeah, it was a very good arrangement for me. It allowed me to enter farming without any net worth, effectively. No net worth, but it allows a son to get back and get started in farming.
And then your hope was to grow the operation as the years went by.
Right.
You were accomplished in that? Were you able to reach those goals?
Well, I think so. I've enlarged the cow herd, and then we built a small feedlot and used it mainly for stocker purposes and not full feeding, but it was good to have. And I liked alfalfa, growing alfalfa, and did quite a bit of that. We could graze our cows on her dad's pasture land, and that helped a lot. It all worked out really good.
Saundra, we must mention you did practice what you learned for a brief time
I did.
In nursing, Garden City.
Enjoyed it at St. Catherine Hospital, yes. And learned a lot there. It's good to use whatever you started learning, and that was valuable.
Up until the point where you decided to start a family.
Well, yeah, up until the point Jeff was born. And then I just decided we lived 20 miles out. When he was born, we lived in Garden City for a few months, but I decided it was important, and that was our decision. It wasn't everybody's, but you have to live on less, but we decided to do that. It's been okay.
I appreciate the word homemaker. It has a lot of meaning, and she chose to be a homemaker and place her identity as a homemaker. As a result of her doing that, it made our farm go from a business to a family farm. You know, it really helped a lot in my efforts to be a farmer because she was always there for the kids, and I knew I had a meal when I came home. And
He did need to eat.
Specifically here on your devotion to conservation practices out here in the Finney, Gray County area. This is something that's apparently fairly well ingrained in you, Doug.
Well, you know, my dad, I guess the story begins with my dad. He grew up in the Dust Bowl days. Dad didn't have any resources to speak of to begin farming, but he was able to buy sandy land, where we are right now, for $4 an acre, and begin farming. And he adopted some practices that probably the K-State Extension promoted, and that was one of them was summer fallowing. Another practice that he implemented was strip farming, and that was a practice where the fields were only about 400 feet wide, and then there'd be a strip of summer fallow and a strip of cropland.
Do want to mention this. Out of apparent necessity, you designed a plow for conservation purposes, which may seem at cross purposes here.
Right.
Talk about that.
Well, yeah, you don't think of a plow as being something you want to use on sandy land. But down through the years, I've noticed that everywhere a gas line was put across the field, the crop was greener and taller where that gas line was. And so I decided to try to duplicate that with a plow. So I designed and built a plow that would plow about 25, 28 inches deep. And in this area, we have sand on the topsoil sand, and then the subsoil is clay. And so I was trying to reach down and bring some of that clay up to the topsoil and mix it with the sand and just try it and see if we could get the pipeline effect. And I think we did. We got a pretty good little yield bump with that practice, and so it was kind of fun. It was fit my innovative spirit, I guess.
Did you employ that more than once then, or?
I just one time is all I think it's necessary. Really, it's kind of scary to plow sandy land and cover all the residue up. kind of tricky there. You don't want to get caught with no residue without a growing crop, but worked out good.
Do want to spend a few moments as well talking about, in general, the involvement on the part of both of you in community activities, in church activities, and we could go on, working with the Fair Board. 4-H most assuredly was part of your lives with your 4 children. Missionary work, you've done that. You might talk about the, if you will, revitalization of the community of Pierceville. That's been a cause you've both taken on here in recent years.
Well, I was working on the activity center. We built an activity center for the church, and the roof was about 30 feet high, and I was working up on the roof, and I was looking out over this little town, and it didn't look good. And it kind of gave me a vision for trying to buy some of the property that was run down and cleaning them up, and so that's where it kind of started. But it's been rewarding. It's not a quick fix, but we've seen some good results. We've built a house on one of our lots and sold it. And other people have started taking care of their property a lot better. So it's just been I like challenges.
You hope you've lit a spark, though, for
I
this
have.
to continue.
We have.
It's been interesting. There's a nice community south here of Mennonite people, and they drive through Pierceville to get to Garden, and they drive to get to the airport or to get anywhere. When they see Doug, they'll say, "Thank you so much for cleaning up Pierceville," and I always get a kick out of that because we haven't done, he has done a lot of cleaning off of lots. They have noticed, and they're the ones that always mention it. Little towns don't clean up themselves if they're not incorporated, and that's the issue. It's not incorporated. So, and a lot of people have been glad to see just some of the junk go away.
Doug and Saundra McGraw of Finney County. You'll hear about another of this year's Kansas Master Farm Homemaker couples. After this, you're listening to Agriculture Today.
While many people know hunger is an issue in developing countries, it is also a problem in our own backyards. In 2010, 1 in 7 Kansans struggled to put adequate food on the table. 2 K-State research and extension programs are tackling this problem. The Family Nutrition Program and Expanded Food and Nutrition Education Program reach thousands of Kansans in more than 70 counties. They learn how to eat healthy with a low budget. For more information about these programs, visit ksre.ksu.edu.
Next up for you on Agriculture Today, as promised, another Kansas couple who've earned the distinction as Kansas Master Farm Homemaker, class of 2019. Dave and Janet Olson were both raised on farms in northeast Kansas, he near Everest, she near Nortonville. Both attended Highland Community College, Dave earning a degree in agriculture there, Janet a business degree. Not long after that, they returned to the family operation full-time to farm with Dave's father and grandfather. Son Jeremy is now farming with Dave and Janet, representing the 4th generation of Olsons to farm in Brown County. They now operate over 1,100 acres, mostly dryland corn and soybeans, with some irrigated beans as well, and hay production. Janet works full-time at a local bank, in addition to her contributions to the farming enterprise. And on top of the crop production demands, Dave has made time to serve as a boys' basketball coach at 3 local high schools over more than 30 years. Both are deeply involved in community service and activities. Dave reflects on the changes to the farm over the years as it moved away from livestock to exclusively crop production now.
My great-grandfather started a long time ago, and then my grandfather, who I remember real well, and farmed with us up until he was 90-something, and it was all 3 of us out on the farm there for several years, and then we lost him in 1996, and then Dad passed away in 2010, and so then it's up to me and Jeremy now. So a lot of good things out here on the farm in our area.
When you were growing up, what was it like? Largely crop production at that time? Or?
A lot more livestock back when I was younger. We had hogs, cattle, a lot of wheat. But we probably had more acres of wheat than we did like corn and soybeans. And soybeans are pretty new. You know, we didn't start growing them till probably in the early 70s in this area, but boy, they're really taking over now. But it's just changed through the years. Yeah.
Janet, bring you in here. Did you grow up in this area as well?
I grew up down by Nortonville, and I also grew up on a farm. My dad was a farmer, and it was good to come back to a farm or whatever. I was living in Kansas City and working there, and then came back to Brown County.
You knew what it was all about, though.
I knew about farm life and the good and the bad about it, so mostly good.
So the both of you attended Highland Community College. Is that where you met, or had you been acquainted beforehand?
Well, actually, we met at a wedding dance. It was Janet's brother married a classmate of mine, and we were at a wedding dance, and she introduced us, and that's how we got together. That's how we met.
I actually graduated from Highland a little bit later after we were married and finished there. I had taken some classes, so kind of put all those together. Graduated from Highland actually in 93. And then I got my bachelor's from Peru State just a few years ago. My goal was to have a college degree before I turned 60, so I accomplished that. So that was a big thing.
And a degree in?
Business.
Does that come in handy in the farm pursuits?
Sure, yeah. And I work at a bank, and it was, of course, they were all online classes and that sort of thing, but it was always kind of my goal. But then the goal was to get both boys through college, and I put my degree on hold. And then as the younger son was graduating, I was like, uh-oh, now it's time. I don't have any excuses anymore.
Dave, again, finishing at Highland Community College, did you then return back to the farm directly?
Well, I went 1 year to Ottawa University and tried to play basketball, continue my basketball career down there. And then in 1980, which of all years, I quit college to come back and farm, and that was probably our worst farming year, was that year. And it was tough back in them early 80s. But I don't regret it at this point. I regret not getting my college degree, but it's all been good since we've come back to the farm and met the love of my life, and I don't regret anything about it.
So when you returned, you did move away from livestock to a certain extent.
Yeah, we did. We moved away a little bit. We got out of the hogs when the prices went bad. I can't remember what years that was, but we didn't have a big hog operation, but it put food on the table a lot of times when the times were tough. And, you know, that's just, you did what you had to do back in those days to continue things. And we got to expand with acreage a few times, and then, you know, here in the last few years, the prices went up so much on land that it's been pretty tough to expand. And we hope to, you know, with Jeremy being in farming, we are expanding a little bit. So that's where we're sitting right now, and hopefully we can get a little bigger in years to come. But we're happy where we are right now. So.
And you've pretty much whittled it down to corn and soybeans.
Yeah.
That's very common in this area.
Right.
So
yeah.
that's where the money is, if you will,
yeah.
most years.
We used to, I remember a lot of wheat, like I said earlier, but we have went away from it. And it seemed like there's just more money in corn and soybeans, and we hope that continues. But there is quite a bit of cover crops being planted around here now too, and we're into that a little bit, especially with the livestock and that kind of thing. But it's just amazing what I've lived through, the changes in farming. It's just amazing how technology has changed the life of farming today, and it's all for the good.
Yeah, wanted to go down that path, and that is your adoption of technology. Have you been aggressive in that, and particularly with a son who's a certified crop advisor, has that accelerated that interest in technology?
It really has. He got his degree out of Kansas State, his master's degree, and when he came back and to be an agronomist up at Peterson Seed in Hiawatha, and he was going to help me, and he said, well, we need to do some of these things, Dad, and we started doing the 2.5 acre grid sampling. We did a little bit this year, and then we kept doing more and more and more, and now we got a planter that the computer tells it what to plant as we're going through the field, and the fertilizer applicator, it's putting on, you know, as it's going through the field, different applications I mean, the technology has really put a lot of money in our pocket the last few years, but we've had a lot of rain, and it's been good the last few years as far as bushels to the acre. So we feel very blessed here the last few years. So,
Janet, have you been actively engaged in various farming activities too, in between everything else you've done?
A little bit, I guess. I usually take vacation during harvest, or I'll go in and work a few hours in the morning and take the rest of the day off, and usually drive the grain truck.
And a grain cart.
And the grain cart a little bit, but usually the grain truck, and I do most of the books, and it's pretty much...
It's a complimentary arrangement, isn't it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Both of you have been deeply involved in the 4-H program here in Brown County.
I was the leader for quite a few years, and then both of us were project leaders. And I was on the Extension Council, I think, about 8 years, maybe. And so we had lots of fun with that and lots of good family time with that. Just with all the activities and community service things that you do with 4-H, and good leadership skills, I think, is the number one thing. It's not all about showing your cattle or making a pie or something like that, but learning those leadership skills and speaking in front of people. And I think both boys have benefited from that a lot as they've been leaders in a program or on the board of something or whatever. Proud of the skills that they learned and are using now.
And as far as community activities, it doesn't stop there for the both of you. You've been, Dave, on the Water District Board,
yeah.
Kansas Corn. You've been engaged in that. You have a lot going on, and you're pretty proud of the tight community you have in this area and how folks help each other out, you say.
You bet.
Absolutely.
I had an accident here, I don't know how many years ago it's been now, 8, 9 years ago, farming accident, lost part of my hand, and it happened to be right before corn harvest, and a bunch of the neighbors got together. The beans were just ready at that point, and I'm sitting in here on my recliner. I couldn't be out, and that was so hard. And then all of a sudden I see a combine go by, and I'm thinking, who in the world is that, going by? And then another one went by, and then pretty soon they all showed up, and all the neighbors got together and combined all the soybeans on this farm and our neighbor farm over here that I farmed. And just wonderful community to live in. We all help each other out, and that's just what it's all about.
Yeah, it was a pretty neat day. Of course, we knew it was a surprise to him, and boys will be boys, maybe. They had their combines out here, and of course they all have different, John Deere or Case or even the New Holland. I was going to say Bumblebee. I couldn't think of the name. And, they were almost racing each other to see who had the biggest and the best, I think, or whatever. But so it was it was a fun day for them too, I think.
Yeah, invaluable relationships, really.
Absolutely.
And I think it's that way all over the country. That's just rural America. Yeah. That's why we're out here.
Dave and Janet Olson of Brown County, among those to be honored as newly named Kansas Master Farmers, Master Farm Homemakers, in ceremonies here in Manhattan this Friday. Tomorrow, we'll tell you about Richard and Denise Swinson of Cloud County. You're tuned to Agriculture Today.
For information on threatening weather, you should depend on the National Weather Service and their broadcast on NOAA Weather Radio. NOAA Weather Radio is an all-hazards radio network that provides up-to-the-minute weather information, including life-saving warnings anytime, day or night. NOAA Weather Radio also broadcasts information on man-made disasters, such as chemical spills, amber alerts, or other national emergencies. For the National Weather Service, I'm Bill Curtis.
Coming to you from the campus of Kansas State University, this is Agriculture Today. Eric Atkinson here. And next up for you, today's agricultural news headlines, these courtesy in part of DTN. Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue told the Congressional Agriculture Appropriations Subcommittee yesterday that the USDA will do what it can to make sure people get food during the coronavirus outbreak, but that some changes would require congressional action. Perdue was urging the House subcommittee to consider reauthorization of the Pandemic Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. That was last implemented for 1 year during the H1N1 virus back in 2009. It has since expired. Now, Representative Sanford Bishop of Georgia, who's the chairman of that subcommittee, said he would consider that suggestion. The USDA has already granted waivers for school meal programs to serve children when schools close in California and Washington state, and has received a request from Utah as well. Still, the USDA can only issue those waivers after a state has requested it, according to Perdue. But he said that if the states apply for the waiver, they're likely to get it. Bishop said that Congress may raise that SNAP benefit rate in an economic bill dealing with the coronavirus. With hog farmers and pork processing plants already facing labor shortages, the National Pork Producers Council wrote federal officials yesterday, raising concerns that the COVID-19 virus could lead to further shortfalls in labor for the industry, citing that industry economists are already expecting a shortfall in packing capacity to hit as early as September. Quoting here, the COVID-19 situation could cause significant capacity shortfalls much sooner and put daily animal care at risk. Those are the words of NPPC President Howard Roth in that letter to officials. Roth is a hog producer from Wisconsin, and he added that school closures preventing parents from working were already a concern for both farmers and processing plants. Now, the NPPC pointed to a market crash for hogs 2 decades ago when the industry was hit with a plant capacity shortage that caused the price of hogs to collapse dramatically, you'll recall. The group also noted that pork producers have a significant opportunity to boost exports to China right now, but a labor shortage would risk much of that opportunity. The NPPC called for the federal government to expedite worker visa and development plans for farmers impacted by bottlenecks in the supply chain. And the USDA's Foreign Agricultural Service said that it's postponing its scheduled trade mission to Morocco this week following the detection of coronavirus in that country. The World Health Organization is advising the public to avoid traveling to affected countries, and the Moroccan government has suspended all events involving international participants, according to the service in an announcement. The mission was supposed to focus on boosting U.S. agricultural exports to all of North Africa and would include interested buyers not just from Morocco, but from Algeria, Libya, and Tunisia as well. Well, the USDA yesterday largely left corn and soybean production, exports, and ending stocks unchanged in its latest World Agricultural Supply and Demand estimates for the 2019-20 crop. The USDA's Gary Crawford has more.
A nice, subdued report. That's how USDA's Outlook chairman described Tuesday's new USDA Ag Supply and Demand report. Most forecasts were the same as USDA was giving us a month ago, except for the outlooks for prices. Those were cut a bit. For corn, USDA still projecting U.S. supplies 15.9 billion bushels, total use 14 billion. USDA did boost the forecast for global corn production by a little less than 500,000 tons, and it dropped its forecast for average U.S. corn prices a nickel to $3.80 a bushel based on the market so far. Soybeans, same basic story. U.S. numbers the same, but a boost in global production this month, mainly from better crops expected in Argentina and Brazil. And just like corn, USDA chopping a nickel off its average U.S. bean price down to $8.70 a bushel. Cotton, USDA did lower the U.S. production and stocks forecast, but still dropped the price estimate by 2 cents a pound down to 60. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.
Also from that report, U.S. wheat exports for the 1920 crop year left unchanged at 1 billion bushels, as was the case with ending stocks at 940 million bushels. The 1920 U.S. wheat supply and demand outlook unchanged this month by and large. The global outlook for wheat for higher production, increased consumption and exports, and lower ending stocks. Output is raised on higher production forecasts for India and Argentina, those more than offsetting reductions in Turkey, and Australia. Global ending stocks of wheat projected lower this month, but remaining record large for the 1920 crop year at just over 287 million metric tons, China comprising 52% of that total. The average wheat price for the 1920 crop was left unchanged at $4.55 per bushel, according to the USDA's report. Well, spring pasture burning is soon to be underway in Kansas, and with that can come concerns about air quality. Scarlett Higgins tells us here that you ranchers can help protect against problematic events by consulting the state's smoke management plan.
Given recent dry and warm conditions, prescribed fire activity in the Flint Hills and throughout the Plains region has begun, with ranchers and landowners using the practice to improve grazing distribution and decrease undesirable vegetation. In order to balance the use of prescribed fire with the need for clean air in downwind communities, those planning to burn should consider the smoke management plan. Through its voluntary approach, the plan leaves flexibility in the hands of the land manager, but puts the responsibility on him or her to make wise decisions. Resources available at www.ksfire.org will help ranchers prevent problematic smoke events in highly populated areas by giving them access to powerful online tools. A map shows the potential smoke impact of burning in a specific area on urban air quality. The smoke modeling tool allows someone to see where smoke will go from a fire in a specific location. Last year, more than 2.6 million acres were burned in 17 Kansas counties, making up the Flint Hills. This was up from just over 1 million acres in 2018. Drought conditions and less than ideal weather in 2018 led to the fewest number of Flint Hills acres burned since 2013. I'm Scarlett Higgins.
And a quick calendar item ahead of the break. K-State's Animal Sciences and Industry Department will be hosting its 2020 Sheep Producer Day. That is set for Saturday, March the 21st. The location will be at the Stanley Stout Center on the campus. They have lined up a fine program there, including Tom Murphy from the Meat Animal Research Center at Clay Center, Nebraska on the program. To find out more about that event and how to register, go to asi.ksu.edu. This is Agriculture Today.
Agriculture and food systems are the main drivers of the Kansas economy, but must be improved in order to feed the world's growing population. How are we going to do so? Reduce food loss, find ways to preserve grasslands, and help families stretch their dollars. Global food systems is one of the 5 grand challenges K-State Research and Extension is addressing. To learn more, visit
www.ksre.ksu.edu. This is Agriculture Today. Stop, look, and listen.
Maybe I should go back and once more get lost.
That's Gus Vanderhoeven of Kansas State University with comment on life in rural Kansas.
I wrote this for March 20, 1991. That's 29 years ago. I expect the landscape to be the same. Maybe I should go back and once more get lost. But it may also be that the countryside around Old Runnymede and the once Shikaskia Ranch is all cleared. Runnymede in Old England is the place where King John signed the Magna Carta in 1215. On a misty morning, you can hear the horn's mournful sound, calling the hounds. It's been a long time since I drove to Anthony, Kansas, where the courthouse of Harper County is located. I drove south of Hutchinson, following Route 17, crossed Route 54, and followed a lesser road by Murdoch. Momentarily I stopped when the road formed a T with Route 42. I could not make up my mind to go east and down south on Route 2, or go west and drive south on 14. Both roads lead to the town of Harper, Anthony is another 6 miles from Harper. Briefly, the T in the road stumped me because I did not like going east or west. I wanted to go south. There was a road going straight across Route 42, but it was a dirt road, and I was a little hesitant not knowing where it would take me. But it was going south, and that is where I wanted to go. So, with a quick look right and left, I crossed Route 42 and was on my way. The dirt road was dusty, raising clouds behind me. The road felt like a washboard. The soil had blown and drifted, and for a moment I thought I should have stayed with the paved road. But I reminded myself I was trying to make time going directly south. However, as the landscape became more desolate with broken and wind-damaged cottonwoods, and as wild plums seemed to squeeze the road from both sides, I kept wondering. The fences looked tired of holding up the strands of barbed wire. The few creeks I crossed had water in them, and a few watermills were pumping fast, too fast, in the blowing wind. At one place, at an overgrown four-way crossing, I stopped and backtracked to read a sign tied to a leaning gate. The sign read, "Historic Marker." I didn't expect and couldn't see anything historical. It all looked long lost, forlorn. What surprised me, though, were a few magnificent shelter belts, especially the straight row of tall cedars. It told me at one time someone had cared. I drove south and stopped for the dead-end road. There was a sign which read, "This is not a through road." It stopped me from my quest to continue south. I thought that just as with the historical marker sign, some locals were trying to make fun of anyone who was foolish enough to take the dirt roads. My doubts increased when I read the back of the dead-end road sign, which read, "I told you so." I can still remember now, 29 years later, reading that, and the laugh it gave me then. At this point, I briefly studied my map and opted to go east and cut into the paved route too. I knew by now I had gone far enough south to be close to the town of Harper. And yes, after a short drive, I saw the road with cars humming along. Only when I stopped at the Kansas State Historical Marker near Route 2 did I realize that I had driven through the old Runnymede countryside. And Runnymede was a typical English village promoted by Turnby as a colony for wealthy Englishmen to send their sons to learn American farming methods. But horse racing, polo, and other amusements were more to their liking than working the land. The colony failed, and many went back to England to continue their feasting there. Today, fields cover the old town site. The town was moved a couple of miles to be near the railroad, and that is where it stands today. But I realized the dirt roads I had been crossing and the land I was viewing once had been the playground for young English gentry. That was 100 years or so ago, which is hard to believe. Today, it surely is not a tourist attraction. But then again, who knows? If your granduncle rode there or played polo and jumped the gates, maybe you would like to see where it all happened. Not every young man returned home to England. Some stayed. Someday I must go back there and look for the old tombstones and the ranch house. I'm going to take time to sit on a log and just imagine I can hear the master of the hunt blowing the horn, calling the hounds. I surely hope I can find my way back. Interestingly enough, the Horse Chronicle magazine recently had an article devoted to fox hunting with horse and hounds. It showed beautiful photographs, well cared for horses and take red coats for riders, great hounds, here in Kansas. And I have friends in Chase County who fox hunt and were recently featured in an issue of the Horse Chronicle. I saved it. I expect they hunt the coyote. I quote, as my friend said, "We love watching the hounds work and galloping across good country on a good morning behind a good pack of hounds. You can't beat that for anything." Maybe Chicaskia Ranch can be revived.
Gus Vander Hoeven of Kansas State University with his weekly commentary on life in rural Kansas. That'll do it for our Wednesday edition. Thanks for being along with us as always, and please rejoin us tomorrow. Until then, Eric Atkinson for Agriculture Today. This is the K-State Radio Network.